Hello. Welcome to Yoga for the Creative Soul book club gathering, where we explore mental health through expressive arts and yoga. We start every meeting at 12:30 Eastern Time on Wednesdays and do a little group check-in first. So for those of you enjoying the recordings, thank you so much for watching, and please do keep posting to the group. But if it ever works out for your schedule to join us live and in person, we gain so much nourishment from each other's thoughts and check-ins. So whether you were here in person or not, we'll send some of that nourishment, support, community your way. Before we get going today, as we're working our way through chapter 7 of Yoga for the Creative Soul, accessing the expressive spirit through using a system, Raja Yoga, the royal yoga path based on the Yoga Sutras. We'll be moving very slowly through this chapter because the Yoga Sutras are rich with depth and wisdom, and we have all the time we want to have to play with this Raja Yoga path as we connect to our true selves, to our expressive selves, through the handbook of enlightenment that is the Yoga Sutras, focusing mostly on chapter 2, which does give us the sequential limbs of Raja Yoga, that handbook to enlightenment. And thank you, India, for the richness of this ancient wisdom that 5,000 years ago was an oral tradition where we would gather at the feet of the guru, so to speak, Upanishad, and learn through song and poetry, community, and energetic sharing, some might call transmission, simply from being in the presence of one who is close to the divine and knows ultimate reality. Our consciousness shifts. And perhaps you've had a similar experience if you've ever visited a sacred location, including the forest, yes, including nature. There is the divine in so many places, and we become more of that true and balanced peacefulness. We are more in the presence of it, quiet, stillness, reverence. Yes, so yoga arising in India about 5,000 years ago. As we carry on, excuse me for just a second. That's what you get when you put milk in your tea. As we carry forth, I do wish to honor the lands upon which we are thriving and surviving, living, convening, creating. Please do find out the original landholders of your area at native-lands.ca, which can globally tell you, and look locally into what endeavors to protect these lands, airs, and waterways are at play in your area. Our original land keepers continue to fight on behalf of Earth to protect our lands, airs, and waterways. And one of the ways we can offer appreciation to our history of colonization is to join forces. Unity. One of our direct translations of yoga is unity. And this Raja Yoga system, these 8 limbs of yoga, are also giving us direct guidelines on a path to uniting with ultimate truth and the sacred self within. Today, a little bit tongue in cheek there on page 96, which on page 96, which is where I begin to dive into the structure of these 8 limbs. I tongue in cheek call the Yamas and the Niyamas do's and or don'ts and do's, more accurately, don'ts and do's. That is, of course, an oversimplification of our tradition. But this idea that yoga does offer us, as it begins to unfold those 8 limbs, it offers us this pathway, these ethics of lifestyle that support us in being who we truly are, knowing what limits our access to who we truly are, to that upliftedness, to that peacefulness, to that wisdom of seeing through reality. And if we follow these directives, then those obstacles are, in fact, removed. Of course, the Yoga Sutras tell us over a long period of time with dedicated practice and without attachment to the end results. So we follow these things. And so Yama translates as restraint. And Niyama, this idea essentially of observing pure actions. The translation for Niyama tends to be observances, and Yama, restraints. So the don'ts and the do's. Yama consists of 5 principles, and all 5 of these principles are guided by non-harm. Last week, while I was doing the teaching, I encouraged you to draw, maybe use your non-dominant hand. This week, what I'm actually going to ask of you, and play along if it suits, and if not, certainly go into color, go into visual, go into your collage images. But maybe this week, while I'm describing, reminding, teaching the yamas and the niyamas, maybe you want to move. And what I would suggest is that you take this practice, unless your body says otherwise, take this practice from standing. And there's no right or wrong in approach to the asanas. Your body already knows. If you do a backward bend for a couple of breaths, your body's going to want a forward bend. You do too much forward and back, your body's going to remind you that you haven't bent to the sides, that you haven't twisted yet. You will feel the call to the next movement or posture, right? Asana, steady, comfortable seat for the mind, a posture of the body so that the mind can be steady. And here, Yama, restraining, what are we restraining? At its essence, we're restraining harm, we're restraining violence. And this ahimsa means not. So a lot of the words in Yama start with this prefix not harm, not violent. Think of it this way, though. This isn't just physical violence. Notice the ways that we harm ourselves through thought. We might think aggressive things about others, and certainly we have a tendency of thinking aggressive things about ourselves. In a couple of weeks, we're going to play with the exercise on page 97, facing the habit of inner harm. It'll be about 2 weeks from now that one comes up. But just for now, thinking of that. And if you're doing these movement practices, by the way, perhaps you are finding an embodiment of self-care or of gentleness, or perhaps you're finding a more fortitudinous posture, feeling the strength that is required in order to say no to harmful thoughts, words, or actions. Guiding us along this restraint of harm. Next is truthfulness, satya. Not just truthfulness, like, hey, don't lie, even lies of omission, but thinking of, when I am speaking, how are these words landing? How is this person translating the meaning of what I'm endeavoring to communicate? And also, is this the highest truth? What are the different perspectives at play here? And can I speak to those as well? A challenging thing to do in the context of language barriers, connotation, history, privilege, experience. Satya can have many moving parts and complexities. And the recommendation is we do our best to speak with the words of the divine. Chapter 1 of your Yoga Sutras can really support you in that state of mind and speaking pure truth. Brahmacharya is it's a compound word, Brahman and Charya, which essentially translates as being a student or a follower of Brahman, and in the Indian tradition, Brahman, the ultimate consciousness, divine consciousness. So how can we direct our consciousness, our energy towards that divine? Next week, we are going to dive into that a little bit more. There's a paragraph on page 96 about Brahmacharya and our expressive selves. This is for next week. But right now, as you're thinking about, like, where is my energy, my prana in my body? Where's my vitality? What shapes does your body want to make as you are a student of your divine self, of ultimate reality? And continuing to play with shapes, embodied sense, movement. The next yama is asteya, right? Not stealing. So we were just talking about divine energy, cultivating that, not wasting energy or leaking energy. And in what ways do we steal energy? Do we take up too much time in conversation? Do we not consider others' perspectives? Do we overuse resources? In what more subtle ways are we taking out of balance or without giving back? Yes. And as you're shaping this, I mean, maybe you're making the shapes of theft, but what I'm asking is, as you strengthen yourself through these divine postures, you're feeling the embodiment of giving in balance. You're feeling the embodiment of not taking more than you're giving. And how does that shape itself into a physical form? Similarly, not wanting what you don't have, a parigraha, not grasping, not coveting, not wishing materially or energetically, emotionally or spiritually that things were different, accepting as they are. How does that form itself in your body? And remembering, as we're finding this steady, comfortable seat of posture, of letting the mind-body system harmonize, balance, still and quiet. How is your breath? What quality of thought are you bringing to this? Maybe with deep breaths, you are saying the concept or its Sanskrit name to yourself, breath by breath. Maybe you're allowing the wisdom of this age-old tradition and every link in the chain of every teacher that has ever taught this tradition to flow on your breath, to support your mind in focusing. These are practices of purity, examples of practices of purity. And niyama, often translated as observances, are observances of cultivating health on all levels and purity. We're careful with this idea of purity. What we know is a rigidity within purity is impure, causes harm, ahimsa. So like it goes against the fundamental thing that we're taught to do or not do. So instead, as you're shaping your body right now, in what ways can you feel health, like true health, flow through you? And what might happen as we bring that curiosity to our bodies somatically is the body might need more rest, and it might say, well, right now purity is lying down. And on the flip side of that, perhaps it opens the door for even more vitality, health to flow through you. Thinking of something nutritious that you ate in the last 12 or 24 hours, thinking of the hydration that you really offered yourself, feeling purity and health in your cells. And how does your movement practice respond to that? Saucha, purity or health. And next is Santosha. By the way, don't get too hung up on the Sanskrit. Remember that these are ancient symbols. Their alphabet is is an alphabet of the East. The symbols look different than our alphabet. And so when we translate it into this alphabet, you'll see differences in spelling. That's just natural. Don't get too hung up on it. It is, the energy of it is in the sound, in where the lips, teeth, tongue, jaw, glottis are working together to create the sound. That's the magic in these Sanskrit words. Santosha, contentment. Contentment. We don't become robots as we become more neutral and equanimous. We don't get dulled down. We still have our humanity, our emotions. However, they're very much colored by our spirituality, that contentment is able to thrive because of our healthful practices in the face of many unwanted, unpleasant, shocking circumstances. So is it that yogis don't get shocked or sad? Of course not. The thing about our practice is that our recovery from that tends to be more rapid or efficient, because that abiding sense, the awareness of true reality, stays with us. And I'll come back to that at the fifth niyama. But let's think of, like, how do we make that happen? We make that happen by generating light and heat around an intention. And so tapas literally translates as to generate light or heat. Think about that as some flint on tinder, sparking something important within you, and then letting that fire warm your dedication towards a certain habit. And we don't spread it out. If you've ever been camping, have you ever tried to light a fire with flint, by the way? Wow. It takes patience and dedication. Sometimes it works really quickly, especially once you're practiced at it, but isn't that tapas, right? So this is sometimes tapas translated as discipline or even austerity, because if we have, as I'm recording this, we're just on the other side of an annual transition. A lot of people working in resolutions. Too many resolutions, tinder spread too thin, sparks can't really land and get a fire going. But if we focus on just one thing, then that heat, that light of the fire can generate within us, and we keep going with it, because then that builds into that warming glow, burning off karma, firing away the obstacles that prevent us from being who we truly are, just through dedication. The austerity is the burn. So, you want to exercise more, but you don't feel like going outside for a walk in the cold. Well, that sting is the thing that reminds us that we're being purified. That little burn from the light and heat is like, oh, my soul got a little purer because I did actually live into my healthful intention. And as you're thinking of that, how is your body shaping itself? Is that a more open posture? Has your breath deepened? Has it expanded into different parts of your ribs, your back, your sides? What's it like to think about doing something on an ongoing basis, warming yourself and lighting your path? Onwards is self-study, svadhyaya, and this is studying wisdom, scripture, philosophy on the human condition, religious readings, if that's part of your lifestyle and practice, and then observing self in relation to wisdom. Self-study. So we're learning, we're growing, and we're applying it very deeply as we observe and learn about ourselves with acceptance, with patience. And then that idea of wisdom itself, reality, certainly material reality, having its own intelligence. We can't see everything that's truly at play, even in the most obvious ways. We can't hear all of the hertz of sound. We can't see all of the wavelengths of light and color. We miss things all the time, let alone when we're applying our own psychological, emotional health to things. So here we remember to surrender to a higher intelligence. We need to remind ourselves to do this a bit more if we are harmed by a life situation, shocked, hurt, don't like it. That's where we really dig into that purity, that healthful practice of I can't know why this is best, but I must have faith that there is something else bigger than me at play. So I'm not saying don't take this as false positivity, right? Don't be dismissive of this. You don't need to be fluffy about this. It is a simple acknowledgement that there is more at play than we could ever truly know. And the idea is that this brings us acceptance of what we are faced with. And from that acceptance, it loops us back into healthfulness, self-study, contentment, practice. How do I work with this thing that I've been presented with, since this is what it is? And in what ways can the higher wisdom support me in moving through this, being transformed by it? So thinking of that book, The Pure Heart of Yoga, which is based on what we're taught from the Yoga Institute in India about how different asanas have different qualities, different states that they put us in. Perhaps you found some of these on your own, but check out your Pure Heart of Yoga by Butera, and the Yoga Institute has some great videos on YouTube as well, teaching more deeply into these concepts. So I steer you there to play with this a bit more. I ask that you balance out whatever might be imbalanced in your physical practice. If you still have to do the opposite side or a counter posture, please offer that to yourself right now. And expressively, that was enough for today. Thank you for playing along in that way. If you wish, for those of you who were doing the movement practice, now take this into a different kind of expression. Perhaps writing a little sketch or scene of dialogue between body and concepts and state of mind, or draw, color, visually express what came through that practice, curiosities, insights, inspiration. And as we work with these yogic ideas over time and allow the concepts to flow through our emotions, our state of mind, our intellect, even our body, as you did somatically today. And then we go that one step further and apply it in our lives, apply it to lifestyle, as well as apply it to creative practice. What we know is that this consistency does contribute to our mental health. And over a long period of time has actually been shown to alleviate or even eliminate various mental health issues. They've actually studied all kinds of mental health issues with various aspects of yoga and repeatedly are finding statistically significant results. More rigor might be needed in some of those studies, and comparative analyses are useful, but it's there. We see it. And anecdotally, many of you watching this video are yoga instructors. I know you see this happen as well for yourselves and for your students and clients. If you have any questions about it, please do reach out to me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so internationally, you can find me there. If you think that anybody else might be curious about this video or benefit from it, please do share it with that person. And like it if you like it, subscribe so you get a reminder every time we do post something. And thank you for sharing your experiences with us, posting your creations to the Facebook group. We are more dedicated and supported on the path when we have those reminders and that feedback that we're not alone. Your sharing matters to all of us. And personally, I always love to hear from you. So thank you for that. If you're interested in going a little bit more into the science of mental health through yoga and yoga therapy, I am offering a training at the end of February. So sign up for the newsletter to get that link directly. You can check out Soulfire Yoga Niagara for the details, or yeah, again, just DM me. I'm happy to chat. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for taking care of yourself, for playing along. And one way to keep this with you as you go through the next week, tapas, is to pick just one of these ideas that we shared today. Non-harm, truthfulness, focusing the energy on the divine, non-stealing, non-coveting, healthful practice and lifestyle, contentment, discipline, austerity, lighting a fire, self-study, or surrender to a greater wisdom or presence. Pick just one of those 10 ideas and watch it play. Let it color your thoughts. Be curious as you move through your reality, finding ways to apply it. And let us know what you come up with. Post it to the group or privately message it my way, because I want to know. I'm curious. I'm thinking of you. Thank you so much for joining in today and for watching the video. All the very best to you.